Good morning. Welcome to the Water Advisory Committee meeting, WACO. Today, Friday the 13th. Don't be afraid. Before we pledge allegiance to our flag, I'd like to tell a short story, 4 minutes. 2 years ago, my son gave me a flag that he flew for 8 years in his plane while working at Iraq and Afghanistan. It was a very important present to me, so I put it in a box and in a display in my house. Someone came and asked me, "What is that?" And I said, "A flag." But somehow, my answer did not satisfy me. It did not express all I wanted to express. So I decided to find the words that I could say next time. And I found a beautiful poem by Mr. Anonymous. I'm going to read to you in 2 minutes. I am the flag. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I am arrogant. I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher. My colors are a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am saluted. I am loved. I am revered. I am respected, and I am feared. I have fought in every battle on every war for the last 200 years. I was flown at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Shiloh, and Appomattox. I was there at San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, in the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, and the beaches of Normandy, Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Pihan, Saigon, and Vietnam. I was there. I led my troops. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired, but my soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, and trampled on the street of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled out, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my country. And when it's by those whom I serve in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have dissolved the bones of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hours are yet to come, when I am torn into strips and used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the battlefield, when I am flown at half-mast to honor my soldier, or when I lie on the trembling arms of a grieving parent at the grave of their fallen son or daughter. I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave. Please follow me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Well, we'd like to recognize any new visitor, anybody for the first time. I can see one person, Mr. Joe Giver, with Survivors Foundation. Joe? Welcome. Okay. Welcome to our meeting. Now we have a quite long program today, so let's get started. First, I'd like to call for the WACO report. I don't see Director Dorothy Green. So let's give some time and invite Director Linda Ackerman then to give the state of the man.
Actually, the WACO meeting was quite good. How's that for a quick, short report? I think I mentioned at some point in time that after the most recent property evaluation that LA now has 5 directors rather than 4. So we now have Mr. Mark Gold from Los Angeles as a new director from Los Angeles. The finance and insurance company this month approved the ready-to-serve charge for the 2017-18 budget, and the board also approved the charge, which basically has not changed since 93-94. In addition, the committee and the board were given a detailed overview of Met's insurance coverage for the next 2 years. We have lots of things to insure, including the directors. Thank God. We expect an increase of up to 8%. Mostly due to poor investment strategies by the insurance companies, and of course, the increase in healthcare. We had a thorough report on Lake Mead and its current status, and I'm going to kind of go through this because it's, to me, very important, and it should as well be important to you. Lake Mead will fall to an elevation of 1074 at the end of this week. That would be today, I'm assuming. And we'll probably end up at 1070 at the end of the month. This, despite the snow that was experienced in the Rockies. This is the way that the way it doesn't work, the balance that we have to keep between Lake Powell and Lake Mead, and there are certain levels where Lake Powell will release their water into Mead, but this is where we are right now. That's not so much to worry about. Arizona and Nevada take the first shortages on the river before us if a shortage occurs. However, we at that time would not be able to do our water transfers. The elevation of the lake will go up to 1078 at the end of the year as these 2 lakes balance out. There's a 90% chance of no shortage next year, but in 2018, there's a 50% chance of shortage in Mead. We here in Southern California, or in California, would be in a shortage today if it were not for the programs that we, Met, and other basin states have engaged in to keep water in Lake Mead. After 2018, we expect a shortage 2 out of every 5 years, so get ready for that. An elevation of 1025 could happen within 10 years. The basin states along the river, are going to have to get together and make decisions about what to do in the event that this happens. We, the board at Met, will have more discussion about this at our June meetings, so I will keep you updated on that. Loss of power from Hoover Dam is always an issue, and if the elevation goes down to 1025, there will be power, but it will be less. The board voted to support an ongoing pilot program, and this relates to Lake Mead, to contribute an additional $1 million, with several other lower basin states also contributing, along with the Bureau of Reclamation, to engage in this pilot program that is a conservation program, and it will conserve 65,000 acre-feet of water in the river. The committee and the board voted also this week to approve Met's urban water management plan. This report will be submitted to DWR, and on July 30th, Met and DWR will make the plan available to the public. Compliance with this, as some of you know, will keep our eligibility for grants, loans, and drought assistance from the state, if and as needed. The Department of Public Health, you may remember, they were the oversight of drinking water, and it was shifted to the State Water Board. The transition seems to have been seamless, according to Met staff. However, as with many government programs, this one is currently underfunded. They are looking at a fee structure, the State Water Board, that will double fees for wholesalers and some retailers. That didn't sit very well with a lot of wholesalers. There were and will be written comments and oral comments, and hearing June 22nd in Sacramento. And at that hearing, they will adopt this fee after hearing the comments. So that'll be something else to watch. And now for that water fact. Did you know that more Americans fish in water than play golf or tennis? Maybe because there's so many ice fishing enthusiasts. Golf and tennis just lend itself not to play in inclement weather. That's my report.
Thank you, Linda. And now for an update on the groundwater supply, Roy Herndon from Orange County Water District.
Hi, good morning, and I am a fisherman, so I fall into that category. So we're at the end of our rainy season. We pretty much behind us now, I'm afraid, for what it was worth. But so we thought it's a good time to give you an update on how the basin did during the last year. And so I'll start with the rainfall chart for the year to date. Our water year starts July 1st, so that's the year. When I say a year, I'm talking July 1st through June 30th. And so we measure rainfall at our Anaheim Field Headquarters office, and the annual rainfall in Anaheim there is about 13 inches. And we can see in the yellow line, that is the average plot of typical rainfall over the years, ending at about 13 inches. As you can see in the blue line there, the lower line, up to this point through the end of April, we're about 8.4. So we're tracking about 4 inches below normal. And I have no confidence that we're gonna do anything better than maybe we hit 9 inches if we have another storm or something. But as you can see, when you get into May and June, don't count on anything. So we're gonna have another dry year, so I can officially say I think we're in our 5th year of drought at this point, at least where we're located here. So that's the rainfall. So what does that mean in terms of the amount of recharge that we got into the groundwater basin? So the bar chart on the left is the 5-year average of our main water supply sources that go into the groundwater basin. The blue would be the groundwater replenishment system, followed by incidental recharge, which is the natural recharge that gets into the groundwater basin by itself. Green is how much met water we buy to recharge in the aquifer. And then the purple is our traditional large source of water, the Santa Ana River base flow and storm flow. So you compare the 5-year average, year to date, we normally be around 220,000 acre feet. This year, on the right, we've actually surpassed our 5-year average thanks to the expansion of the groundwater replenishment system last June. So you can see the blue on the bottom there, that's the groundwater replenishment system water that we've been recharging better than last year because of the expansion. So we're looking at recharging by the end of this year, next couple of months, a little over 100,000 acre feet of recycled water from GWRS. So that now is becoming, it's on par with Santa Ana River water as the two competing largest sources of water to the groundwater basin. So what does that mean for our overall water budget for this year? That's 2 more months to go. We look at our main chart here, and we can see all the inflows and outflows to the basin. Santa Ana River base flow, our estimate about 65,000 acre feet. Of course, about 8-9 years ago, that was over 100,000 acre feet of base flow. So we've seen the upstream water agencies doing a real good job of capturing that water and not letting it get to us, as they're entitled to do. So we're seeing that go down and get into storm flow. Incidental recharge, as I mentioned, GWRS, a little over 100,000 acre feet we're projecting. And our board just approved buying an additional 10,000 acre feet of imported water to recharge in the basin. So we're looking at about 46,000 acre feet of recharge from Met water this year. Almios barrier. And so looking at estimates of pumping close to 300,000 acre feet, and we're looking at netting out about 11,000 acre foot increase in storage in the basin. That's not much, but at least it's starting to raise storage a little by ever so much in the groundwater basin. So we're looking at ending up with accumulated overdraft, which is our term for about how much empty space we have in the basin, of about 370,000. So here's a chart that shows what that looks like historically. That chart goes back to about 1993. And on the left axis, that's our storage in hundreds of thousands of acre feet. The zero would be if our basin is completely full. And we don't really want it to be that full, because you start having problems with swimming pools popping out of the ground and seepage and things like that. So our operating range, where we'd like to be, our happy spot, is kind of between 150 to 200,000 acre feet would be a great place to be. And we've bounced around, as you can see, over time. We've gone through droughts, we filled the basin, gone through droughts again, and so you can see towards the right side of the chart, we've been in a downward trend since about 2012. Thankfully, we had bought about 90,000 acre feet of imported water when it was available in 2011, 2012, and so it allowed us to start in a very good spot as we entered into this now 5-year drought. And so you can see that we're projecting a slight increase there in the storage to about 370,000. Looking ahead in the following year, our board is budgeting for about, if all of our assumptions hold true, which they hardly ever do, about a 17,000 acre foot further increase. When we get down below that dash line of 350,000, our board policy is to start to try to bring the basin back up if it can. So that's the goal, and that's what the board voted to do last month. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any chance of purchasing reduced cost water from that?
They're not offering reduced cost water. I wish they were.
No. Water, but not reduced cost.
They're selling water, but at full rate.
Can we get more of your fishermen to go up at the Delta and fish the Delta smelt? If we can get rid of them, maybe we can get more water down.
Well, next is the reason some of you are here today, the water reliability study, phase 2. And to head this presentation, we have invited Karl Seckel. Karl Seckel is known by mostly everybody here, and I have nothing to say about him, mainly because he doesn't want us to say anything about him. However,
We don't.
I was just kidding. However, there is one thing that probably some of you don't know about Karl. I know him for 25 years, and 20 of those years we have been always sitting in the opposite side of the table during negotiations. And I'm witness of the dedication and the effort that he put together to serve the member agencies that MWDOC serves. Now, in the last few years I am in Toro, I can relax and be sure that Karl is doing the best he can for our agency. So, Karl, your turn.
Why don't you get me set up here? I want questions today, and I didn't come alone. I came with a panel that I'll introduce in a second, but I'm going to throw a lot of information at you, and I want to hear back from you. What did I miss? What else do you want to know? I will respond to everyone. If you want to do them anonymously, I'm happy with that. If you want to put your name and email on, I'll make sure and get back to you. But I think the topic that we're talking about today is our water future, and so it's an important topic. The reports that were already given today touched on some of the issues. We talked about the Colorado River shortage issue. I'm going to mention that a little bit. We talked about the groundwater basin. But all of you are sitting here today, you're wondering, where will our water come from? How will we be reliable in the future? And that's something that I've been involved in for the last 12 months or so. I didn't do it by myself. We worked with each of your staff members, so I had a group of 30-some staff members from each agency in the county that work through this. I was here in December and I talked about the phase 1 effort, and I got some complaints that you all didn't like hearing from me for an hour, and I think they were voiced primarily by John Withers. Where's John? And maybe Cheryl Brothers is part of it. No, just kidding. But I brought a panel with me today because I'm gonna take about 30 minutes and run you through what we've been looking at for the last year. And then what I would like to do after that is I found 4 volunteers. They were selected based on their IQ, how smart they are, their water intelligence, how handsome or beautiful they are. Mike, you're beautiful, and Lisa, you're handsome. The panel members I brought with me today, and so this is the way it's going to work. You have to put up with me for about half an hour. I would like to hold questions and answers, and that's part of the reason for the green sheets. I would like to give each of the panel members about 5 minutes or so to reflect on what they got out of the study efforts out of the last year. And once again, we had over 20 meetings. We probably had 25, maybe 30 meetings, and these folks were in attendance at them also. You're going to hear from me. You're going to hear then from these 4. We have Mr. Mike Marcus, the manager of the Orange County Groundwater Basin, Paul Whitehorse, Water Resources Manager for Irvine Ranch Water District, Matt Colling, Assistant General Manager for Molten Miguel Water District, and Lisa Olin, General Manager from East Orange County Water District. And the selection was not by accident. As I'll tell you a little bit, we're now getting into what does the reliability look like in different parts of the county. So Matt has South County perspective, Mike has groundwater basin perspective, IRWD always has their own unique perspective, so I had to tee them up. And then Lisa, she brings a global perspective, and you will hear some different thoughts from her than you hear from the typical water manager, so I had to have her on the panel. So that's the way this is going to work. 30 minutes from me. Write all your questions down. If we don't get to them today, I will answer them. Then we'll do the panel, and then we'll leave plenty of time for Q&A from the audience, and we'll stay here as long as you want. So let me get going in this. I have a finish line up there because this has been a long effort. We are not completely done. So probably lose some points on my appraisal process for this year, but we were supposed to be done by now, but we're close. And we will have documentation of what I'm about to present to you today done by the end of May or early June. We will circulate it once again. This isn't an end-all process. This is a beginning of an understanding of what goes into our reliability and how we can get to the future and have enough water collectively for our customers. I'm not going to give you all the answers today, and what I present may not make entire sense today, but after you go through it a couple times, I think you'll start to get comfortable with it. Also, I am available. We will develop an outreach program out of this. We'll go around to the different parts of the county and talk through this, so we are available. Once again, this isn't a be-all, end-all. But I am here to tell you that we took a stepwise, methodical process through these efforts, and there are some huge efforts. So when you get to those key efforts, you can go to the right and you can go to the left, and so that's where we used our work group. They helped us get through those, and so the value of that is you'll hear that today. Once again, we don't have the ability to perfectly prescribe what will happen in the future, either with what the State Water Resources Control Board is going to do in the future or what Mother Nature is going to do in the future. But we approach the modeling in a way to inform us as to what those variances and what those deviations can be. So once again, think about it. This isn't an absolute, but it's an informative process. The modeling work informs us. We won't have full agreement on all the assumptions that are included in here, and there will be debate back and forth, and I'm gonna be caught in the middle of that because the results of this report will be used to push people in projects this way and people in projects this way, and it can be a pretty wide variance. So once again, what I'm gonna lead you through today is what we found through this effort. Reader's Digest is convenient because in a short setting, you can get the synopsis of what we're gonna present. So for those of you who are here this morning that don't like morning meetings and you don't like paying attention for an hour, you only have to pay attention for the next 4 slides. And then if you wanna take a little nap, go ahead, because then I'm gonna get into a little bit more detail. But I wanted to start out, because we have technical folks in the audience, we have non-technical folks. I'm gonna try to hit you with the overview, get into some of the detail, share some of the implications, and then keep moving forward. So, first one out of the box is a biggie, that water will cost more in the future. How much is the question? And once again, in the detailed work we'll provide, we'll try to characterize for that. But there aren't any cheap projects out there. There aren't any projects out there that are less than the cost of met water, and so that's kind of what we're faced with when we're looking in the future. Another point that I try to drive home through this process is we do not have full control over our reliability in Orange County, nor does anybody in Southern California. We all fall under the metropolitan umbrella, the Integrated Resources Plan, and what happens at the state and what happens at Met impacts what we do here, and so we can't do our planning in a vacuum. And as you'll see today, a large part of the path that we took with our work group was to look at what is going on in the entire Met service area to see what we could tease out as far as a reliability future. So just think about that. We think that we can control everything in Orange County by investing in A, B, and C, and we really can't. It doesn't work that way, so it's a biggie. The other issue that came out of this was the California water fix. If it is successful, it brings with it a huge improvement in reliability at a relatively low cost. And you'll see a number later on, 440,000 acre feet on average is what the additional supply out of that project will be. If it is successful to Southern California, believe me, it will be our lowest cost supply if we can be successful. One of the key challenges that the work group faced was, what if it doesn't happen, or what if we aren't successful? Is there a plan B out there? And that leads to the next bullet. We actually, through this process, found multiple paths to reliability, and I'll call them up here, a plan A and a plan B. And a plan A includes the California water fix, and once again, if we could jettison ahead to 2040 and the California water fix was up and operating, and then come back to today, we'd probably say that we're in good hands. But we don't know that, and we don't know if it's going to be successful. And so the key decision issue is, well, what do you do in that? And what our work group came up with was actually a recommendation for us to do our planning based on Plan B, where we don't have the California water fix. And it makes sense if you think about it, that if you have a big project and you don't know if it's going to happen or not, you want to start taking incremental steps that are useful, but that will be complementary to where you get later on. And so adaptive management is part of this effort. The other thing we came to the conclusion on, that there are a lot of what I'll call high impact issues that are going to happen, what we think, in the relatively near future. And this makes our decision making confusing, but the other observation, we're hoping that these will come to fruition within the next few years and give us some clarity on issues so we can start picking off our path to a little finer degree. Let me touch on these a little bit. Some have said that if the California water fix does not get initiated prior to Governor Brown leaving office, it might be another generation. Once again, we don't know. Metz Carson IPR project, if you're not familiar with that, IPR is indirect potable reuse. The Carson project, it's a new bold proposal by Metropolitan to start treating recycled water out of the Carson plant in Los Angeles County, treat it to better than drinking water standards, convey it to groundwater basins for groundwater replenishment, and it would produce initial phase of 65,000 acre feet, maybe up to as much as 168,000 acre feet if it goes to ultimate build out. That effort is under study. It is not, we don't know, once again, if it's gonna move forward, but it's a bold step by Metropolitan to help improve our reliability. So once again, the go, no-go on that will come about in the next year or two, and so we'll see where that comes to fruition. And for you, those of you who don't know, Orange County is kind of an anchor point in that project, and a spur of that would bring as much as 65,000 acre feet into Orange County to put into the groundwater basin. Met member agency projects, once again, why do they matter to us? Because we can't do our planning in a vacuum, and any projects that are done by MET's member agencies help our overall reliability for the entire reason. So we need to pay attention to those and which projects are moving forward and which ones are not. What happens at Lake Mead, Director Ackerman mentioned that earlier, that we are moving into that triggering phase, and what you will hear is, well, the first trigger on that doesn't fall on California, it hits Arizona and Nevada, but my instincts tell me that political reality is that somehow California will get involved in that one. So I think we need to pay attention to it. And then there are a number of policy issues, both locally and at MET, that I'll go through a little bit later in the presentation. But once again, given these uncertainties that are going to be teed up in the next couple of years, adaptive management, once again, is the key. Okay, here's the final Reader's Digest version. Once again, the map there shows 3 regions of Orange County. We actually did the modeling and evaluation for 3 regions of Orange County because they have differing local supplies. Brea and Mahabra get a lot of local water from Cal Domestic Water Company in LA County. So we looked at that area. We looked at the Orange County Water District as an entity, that region, and we looked at South Orange County. And the short synopsis is that Brea and Mahabra look okay, and I'll define okay in a minute. The OCWD basin looks okay, and I'll share with you some information on that. South Orange County reliability doesn't look quite as good. South Orange County has a much higher dependence on MET. It's somewhere between 90 and 95% at current. They are considering a number of local projects down there. We'll give you some insight as to what those improvements will do to the reliability for South Orange County. And then the last comment in the Reader's Digest version is that what if we're wrong in some of the assumptions we make? We need to test those, and there will be sensitivity testing, and one of those is to increase the demands, run it through the modeling, see what it shows us, and that will result in a lower reliability if we're wrong on that equation. So monitoring demands in the future will be key to this effort. If you think about it, if demands increase above where we're projecting them, that's a supply that needs to provide it each and every year, so it's essentially a new baseloaded supply, so it's a sensitive part of this equation. Okay, now to the question of what does okay mean? And I shared this slide in a meeting about a week ago or so, had a few OCWD directors in it, but this is a sample output. Once again, MWDOC's role in this was not to draw any conclusions, recommendations regarding future investments to be made, but we're a facilitator of bringing the information forward and then hoping that the local and regional agencies will take off on that. But let me talk about, and I call these the ugly charts because they are what happens when you do your modeling and you use 93 years of historical hydrology, and so for each time step, for each year you move forward, you run the analysis 93 times, and so what the model spits out is a probability curve. So what you're looking at here is a probability curve. When you look at those, you want to look at a couple things. The bottom axis says probability of shortage, so you don't want to be in a shortage, so let's pick that red line for example, and let's assume that hits the bottom axis at 30%.
the way I would read that, and if you don't have a pointer, there we are, right, I'll skip that. So where the red line hits that bottom axis is about 30%. So if you go to the right, that means you're fully reliable about 70% of the time, and you're gonna have shortages about 30% of the time. So that's the first thing you wanna look at. Second thing you wanna look at is, well, the 30% of the time I'm gonna have shortages, are they big or are they small? And so you look at the left part of the axis and how high that goes. For this one, it goes to about 70,000 acre feet. And you see that the demands projected up there for the Orange County Water District Basin are in round numbers about 400,000 acre feet. So if we have a 70,000 acre feet shortage that hit the basin and we divide that by 400,000 acre feet, you get about 17%. We're in a shortage where we've been saving about 20% water, so you may conclude that we can meet that need through water conservation. That would be demand curtailment, emergency conservation. Some may argue we don't want to do that and we should be making investments so we don't have to go through the process we're going through again. That's how these curves are used. So let's assume we curtail our demands by 10% under this scenario. So what it does, that conservation, and that red shaded area is for about 5% of the time. So once again, 1 in 20 years, we're going into about a 10% level of conservation. As decision makers, you all need to be thinking, are we okay with that or are we not okay with that? 1 in 20 years, well, maybe the public's okay with that. If it was 5 in 10 years, I'm sure the public is gonna say they're not okay with that. So the other thing that this shows is that the remaining shortages within the OCWD boundary are much lower and can be managed, as Roy Herndon explained earlier. The groundwater basin's a big reservoir, it can be managed, you can put and take water. And so kind of our conclusion or the implication from this is that the OCWD service area can manage through these types of shortages, and we've done it before. And so that's what I mean by okay. Some would argue we need to increase the reliability so we don't ever have shortages. Others would argue that no, you can incur much larger shortages, and once again, we're gonna be in this tug of war, but that's my interpretation of what okay means. Let me take a step back and run you through the path that we went through. What is a reliability study? A, we take a look at what our future demands are. Oops, went the wrong way there. We take a look at what our future demands are. We take a look at what our existing supplies in the county are. And then, remember I said we can't do our planning in a vacuum, so we impose on that the supplies that we would get from Metropolitan, and that's not necessarily an easy process to estimate the amount of supplies we would get from Met, because there's 25 other Met member agencies that are also competing for those supplies. But you take a look at that and you ask the question, can your analysis under B and C meet the demands you've projected under A? And if so, you would declare that you're reliable, and if you can't, then you want to start asking the questions, what should we be doing, what can we be doing, what are the circumstances under which we would be reliable, what additional projects will help. And so the first thing we did in the study is we took a look at demands in Orange County, and once again, we were in the middle of the imposition by the State Water Resources Control Board. The chart shows the historical fluctuations of demands in the entire county of Orange. That blue line is kind of fluctuating on or about 600,000 acre feet since about 1990 until about 2007, 2008, and then it starts taking a dive. Took the dive for a couple of reasons. We had the recession, and then we had the drought. Then we started the recovery from the drought. We had one good year of rainfall, and then the state board came in and imposed the mandatory restrictions, and we took the big dip down that you see. And that's our historical trend of demands in the county. And so the question facing us as a work group and as a group of planners is, what are the demands going to do in the future? So We projected a demand rebound. It's synthesized from where we are actually going to end up this year. We think that rebound will take place over 5 years, meaning that we'll get back up to about where we were before, to about 90% of where we were prior to the drought. So there will be a 10% permanent retention of demand reduction. Once again, that's to be seen. In Orange County, as we're looking at those out-year projections, the other thing you're adding on top of that is we are growing and we're adding jobs, so that takes water. But we're also doing additional investments in water use efficiency, and so we're fighting that demand line. Some things are pushing it up, other things are trying to push it down. So this was our best forecast of where we think demands are going in the future. A couple interesting statistics. If you look at our demands in 1990, they were roughly around 600,000 acre feet. If you look at where they were in 2014, before the major downward trend, we were about 600,000 acre feet in demands. And if you look out around 2040, our projections without water use efficiency were about 600,000 acre feet again. But we've added between 1990 and now about 750,000 residents in the county and the jobs to support those residents. And there's going to be another 300 or so thousand additional residents. So it does demonstrate our efficiency in water use. The other thing that's interesting on this chart is the difference between our local supplies on the left-hand side and the demand line we fill in with MET. The right-hand side of that chart, we have options. We can either fill in with MET or we can do additional new local supplies for within Orange County. So that was the demand part of the analysis. As far as potential local supplies that will help us out, and once again, we need to take a broader perspective than just Orange County. So these are projects that could be done by Metropolitan. A number of those, we have the California Water Fix there. Metropolitan, as Linda alluded to earlier, they're always working additional deals on the Colorado River side of things. We think they need to work some additional deals on the state water side of things. They have the Delta Islands purchase. In addition, there are potential projects, and these are categories of projects in Orange County, whether they be recycling, water transfers, OCWD, basin storage, ocean desal, those types of things. Those are what we're looking at teeing up. And then emergency needs. And once again, where we're going with this is which of these projects are in our water future in Orange County. You may say, well, why don't we just do them all? I'm going to talk about over-investing and underperforming. Those are the two things that we're always trying to balance, so I'll get to that in a little bit. As far as the stepwise methodical route we took with our work group, once again, we projected demands, but we needed to not only project those, we needed to integrate them into the modeling process and come up with what we thought were plausible, reasonable assumptions of where the future might take us. We could have gotten to each of these junctures and we could have taken a high and a low, but by the time we got to the end, we would have such a high and such a low that it would be meaningless. And so we kind of forced the work group at each of the key decision points to pick off what they thought was reasonable and plausible. So on the demand side, we took the demands we projected and we increased them by about 4% to account for some future climate variability. The historical hydrology, we used 93 years of historical hydrology, and once again, imposed on top of that a very moderate amount of climate variability. When we got to the California Water Fix, we had to take a branch at this point, and once again, we took the split one way, assuming the California Water Fix would occur, and taking the split the other way, where the California Water Fix would not happen. That's the split for Plan E, Plan A, and Plan B. And a comment there is that both of those paths can be reliable, and that was one of the things that came out of the study. Now after that, whether you take the Plan A or Plan B, you still have to pay attention to what other projects MET's going to do, what other projects the MET member agencies are going to do, what projects we're going to do in Orange County, and where we should be heading. So that was the stepwise methodical process. We took that information and turned it around and cast our net back towards Metropolitan, because that's our supplier of water in between what we can do locally and what our demands are. And we developed 7 reliability curves. One of these is the one I shared with you in December, which is the do-nothing alternative, and I'll show you why that makes no sense, that if we do nothing, we'll essentially go out of business. But we took intermediate steps in between the do-nothing and the do-everything to see what the reliability, what we could tease out of that and what the implications would be for us. And as we did that, our work group came to a finding, a recommendation that we do our planning for the time being on what we'll call Portfolio B. And I'll explain that, how we arrived at that. When I talk about portfolios, portfolios are groups of projects that we can invest in. Once again, there's not a silver bullet out there. When you are planning for the future, it's going to take groupings of projects. Those are what portfolios, and you can structure those projects together under different types of portfolios, which is what we did. Just to comment on local projects by the member agencies, and there's a lot of detail in this slide, but I only want you to take away a couple small items. This was the summary of local projects that were tabulated in Metropolitan's Integrated Resources Plan, and if you look at the top there, there's over 500,000 acre-feet of potential local supplies within Southern California that could be developed. Now, the color coding on those ranges from, some of those are under design to some of those are conceptual or feasible, which means they're pie in the sky, maybe a glimmer in somebody's eye or thought, but it may not be reality right now, and so you have to use some sense of evaluation of which of those might come to fruition. Our work group took a closer look at that. Metropolitan and its IRP only included projects that were under design or under construction. We took a little bit broader look at that in our evaluation. Sorry about this one, it's a messy slide, but I think it tells an interesting story. This is how we put together a set of portfolios to decide which one of those we liked and which one we think we should use for our planning in Orange County. So just to get you oriented, on the left-hand slide, there's a grouping of blue there. Those are MET potential projects. Down below that, highlighted in green, is MET member agency potential projects. As a further disaggregation of the slide that I previously showed. So we have these supply options and opportunities, and so you think of it as a shopping list. So where do you want to start in that shopping list? You're going to start with certain projects, and the progression moves from left to right. The left-hand side are less reliable portfolios because they have fewer projects in it. If you look at what Portfolio A is, we said that's very achievable because there's not many projects in it, but Portfolio A only has 200 and some thousand acre-feet of new local supplies in it. Whereas if you start going over to the right-hand side of that chart, you can see that we're developing new supplies of over 1 million acre-feet a year. And the question mark is, what do you want to include in your shopping list? How far do you want to go? What do you want to base your planning on for the next 40 years? And once again, the key theme of this is adaptive management. You're going to start out heading in one direction and you're going to make adjustments as you go. So the question to the work group is, where should we start out? A couple more, let's see here. A couple more comments on this is Metropolitan's Carson IPR project was not necessarily included in their IRP as a potential project. We're thinking that is and it has a lot of steam behind it. We're thinking that it will be part of our portfolio in the future. So we can see how we layered the Carson project on there under Portfolio B. We assumed it would provide 100,000 acre-feet in our future. Down below that, under the Portfolio B, the other local projects that we picked off out of that prior chart were ones that already have high political support, either San Diego County Water Authority's Water Pure project, the Upper Basin Indirect Potable Reuse project, LA Department of Water and Power Groundwater Cleanup project. These are projects that are already in some form of planning. We think there's heavy political support and that they will come to fruition. So once again, that shopping list moves from left to right, and you can add more and more projects in there. The last three portfolios on the right are fully reliable, so D, E, and F. The investments that are made under those and the associated costs that would be associated with those would be higher, but those would result in full reliability. And the California fix is only included in the last portfolio all the way on the right. So as our work group looked at this, they said, we'd like where portfolio B gets us, and I'll show you a modeling run on that. And that should be the basis of our planning for now, and then we use adaptive management down the road. So that's how that messy chart works. Here's what it looks like in a different format. These are those reliability curves again. Once again, let me focus you on that red one. When I was here in December, we focused on the do nothing. That red one is if we make no new investments in Southern California, what's our reliability look like? It looks horrible. And this is in 2040, so that intersection on the lower part of that chart is at 80%, so 20% of the time we'd be fully reliable, 80% of the time we have shortages. Doesn't sound very good to me. As you make and add additional projects into those scenarios and you run the model, those reliability curves, as they improve, they get further and further to the left hand axis and head to the zero. In fact, if you look real closely, you won't see portfolios D, E, and F even showing up on the chart, and the reason is because they're fully reliable, so they all get plotted on top of one another on the bottom axis. And so they disappear off the chart when you get fully reliable. So once again, our work group said we think portfolio B is what we should be planning for. We'll run Orange County through that. We'll take a look at what that shows for our reliability and help use that to guide us in our future investments. And that's really what we got out of this scenario. If I take those portfolio B runs and the 2040 curve is the same one that was just shown there, but if I add the 2020 and 2030, you can see that in 2020 we're not as bad off. 2030 gets a little worse, and 2040 gets us to that curve, that gold curve that I shared on the previous chart. But once again, you can't solve everything immediately. One of the findings coming out of the study is that 2020 reliability is not god-awful, so we do have some time to work on this. And so this reliability curve assumes, once again, there is no California water fix, but it does assume that there's Carson IPR and a lot of member agency projects. But there are no Orange County projects included in this yet because we wanted to test those. Once again, we can do that 10% demand curtailment to deal with that. In the Met service area, we have a demand of about 3.5 million, so a 10% would be 350,000 acre feet. It still leaves you with some fairly significant shortages in the future. Those are going to be dealt with in storage on the Met system. Once again, just a slide to hammer home the issue on the California water fix. If we are not successful on that, our supplies from Northern California will continue to diminish over time. So you can think of it as that we're not getting any new supplies, we're just not losing any more supplies, but it is a benefit to the region between the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project. It's a benefit of about 1.2 million acre feet a year. That translates to a benefit to the Met service area of about 440,000 acre feet a year. So it's a big deal. And the takeaway from this, until we know otherwise, we really should be supporting that effort. It is our next least cost of supplies for Southern California. So the findings at the Met level, I've gone over pretty much all of these, but we identified 3 paths to Reliability, only the portfolio F has the California water fix, although we should be supporting the California water fix. The cost of these options are still part of the work that we have to do between now and the end of May when we publish the reports. Let me talk for a second about met storage. Met storage is critical. It's what's gotten us through the droughts we've been through the last number of years. We've pulled almost 2 million acre feet out of met storage accounts in the last couple of years to survive to the degree we have. And one of the short-term findings from this study was Met needs to fill some of those reserves up as soon as possible to get prepared for the next drought, because we never know when it's going to hit. So that's a critical item, and there are a number of other advocacy things that we'll get to at Met. Once again, for the Orange County modeling effort, we should use that portfolio B. I talked earlier about, I said Brea and Harbor are okay, OCWD is okay. South Orange County needs to look at some investments. We ran some sample illustrative portfolio investments. So I'll share these. These are 4 different portfolios. Once again, we're not recommending any one of these. These are illustrative in nature. They were selected to demonstrate differences between different types of projects that could be put together to help meet those shortages. Once again, if you go down to the bottom line on the chart, we're showing a need in South Orange County under a severe shortage of about 49,000 acre feet. So from a supply side, where are you going to get those supplies from? So in this table, all those local supplies plus demand curtailment will always total to 49,000 acre feet. So we provide that reliability. Once again, the level of demand curtailment can be varied. That's a local agency decision to make. The other thing that's on this chart is the emergency supplies, which is shown instead of in acre feet, it's shown in cubic feet per second. This is if we have an earthquake and there's an outage, how much peak supply do you need? So that's 53 CFS for South Orange County. So under any of those 4 scenarios, it's always going to add up to 49,000 acre feet or 53 CFS to bring together that full reliability. This is what it looks like if you plot it out on the chart. You can see that reliability curve. That's the same. That is the reliability curve for South Orange County in 2040. They have a shortage of about 49,000 acre feet under the most extreme. That's where that came from. You have shortages about 25% of the time. Those shortages, 49,000 relative to demand in South Orange County of 130,000 acre feet, can be quite severe. And that's one of the reasons the conclusion is that some level of investments are needed in South Orange County. So what this portfolio demonstrates, if we've added on Laguna Beach County Water District groundwater supply that they've recently secured from the OCWD basin. We've added in the Doheny desal, we've added in the San Juan groundwater basin expansion, we've added in a Cadiz transfer, we've added in then a water banking in yellow. That would be a semi-tropic water banking where you pull the water out of Central Valley only in the years you need it. And you use demand curtailment and you have your reliability. Sounds easy, but there's cost associated with that. And once again, part of this effort was to help the agencies put together information and tools for decision making. This is a sample output of the financial analysis. Once again, there are a number of layers of costs that total to the present value of costs. And what we did for this chart is we ran costs out between 2015 and 2040, brought them all back to a present value basis, and used that as a decision-making metric. It is not what you would pay for the water. It's designed to tease out differences between the different portfolios, and there's a couple interesting things that come out of this. The emergency supply cost would be the cost of connecting South Orange County to the OCWD basin to get emergency supply water if and when needed. The cost for that on a present value basis, that pink bar ranges between 25 million and 63 million. New supplies South Orange County could invest in, you can see those costs range anywhere from about 103 million to $998 million on a present value basis. We're assuming Met's LRP project would still be available. So under some of those, you would get incentives from Metropolitan. But an interesting thing that came out of this chart, South Orange County is highly dependent on MET today, and even with these local investments will remain fairly highly dependent on MET out into the future. And so you're continuing to purchase MET water under each and every one of those scenarios. And so an interesting thing that popped out was the cost of the MET water ranges between 71% and 95% of your future costs, sort of no matter what you do. And so it brought together the overall present value of those portfolios. You can see they all came out to be about the same, unless you look at the status quo, which is the do-nothing one, the far one on the right. We ran that assuming there weren't any new investments, but when you encountered water shortages, you would still purchase water from MET, but during a shortage, if you purchase extra water from MET, it's 3 times the cost of MET water. So that's what that $517 million highlighted in the green is that would be added. So it demonstrates the value of making local investments should result in a lower cost for that region. I'm going to keep moving here. Decision-making, things that we're always trying to balance are over investments, meaning we build too many supply projects and cost our customers extra, versus underperformance, meaning that we're in shortages more than we want to be in shortages. A couple of comments on that is that there is no perfect plan, and adaptive management is key to that. We will be running 3 sensitivity analysis, so I would stay tuned for those because they will have an implication on what our reliability looks like, and especially under the one where we increase demands, things will look worse. Policy issues at MET, there's a lot of issues that are swirling regarding how we do our planning and investing and what our relationship is with MET is. It has to do with the issue I mentioned earlier about getting MET to increase their storage reserves, because regionally it's what's gotten us through the drought. How local supply projects are counted during a water supply allocation plan for MET. MET support for local projects, we count on that. Things may be changing. MET's board is debating some of those elements now with MET's investment that they may make in the Carson IPR project, which may be $1 billion or $2 billion over time. Will that affect their local resources program? Their groundwater management in Southern California, how MET interacts with the groundwater basins, including the RCWD basin, rate structure changes at MET, and then emergency storage is another, I think, big issue at MET. Local supply issues, these are things you should be concerned with. I'm going to cut to the chase here because I need to get my panel up here. Earthquakes, they will happen. They were part of our planning. We came up with recommendations for the different regions in the county. And I just missed a slide on the Poseidon project. Poseidon project was the last slide in. Who took it out?
Sir.
Okay. Let me see. Let me, you all have it in front of you. Poseidon project is a tug of war. When I asked people what they wanted to hear about in this presentation, virtually everybody said, what are the implications for the Poseidon project? And I will tell you, if you pay attention, read the details of the studies, you can make an argument that the Poseidon project should be in our investment future, or you can come to the conclusion that maybe we should wait before we make that. There are a whole host of issues. We will be tugged back and forth in that debate. That debate is current within Orange County, and so we'll have to pay attention to that. So let me stop right there, get my panel going. I'm going to jump right in, and we're just going to go right in order. So, Mr. Marcus, if you'd like to jump in with your observations and comments, and we'll just run them down the line and then open up for Q&A. Do not forget to be writing your questions on the green sheets for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karl. And Karl did a great job throughout the process. It really was a collaborative process with most of the member agencies participating. And I think a lot of good stuff will come out of this report. For me, what the study needed to show primarily were two things. The first was, what will future water demands be? The second was, what's Met's reliability going to be moving forward into the future? I felt if we knew those two things, that would give the individual agencies a basis to at least be able to evaluate future projects that they might build to help their water supply reliability. The study also will, I think, look at the final version as Karl showed. He showed some different curves. He talked about the California water fix. He talked about the Carson IPR project as being significant projects that Met is considering moving forward into the future. And I think the report will show, or the final report will show, kind of with the fix, without the fix, what those curves look like, and then also with the IPR project. I think what that does is it kind of brackets things. So there again, each individual can kind of see, each individual agency can kind of see where they fit within that bracket, which there again will help them evaluate what projects they may need to look at in the future. One thing I've been kind of advocating for is once we complete this phase is we then allow the member agencies to perhaps individually use that as a foundation and maybe hire directly with CDM to run different scenarios for the individual agencies. Because my board may want to run a lot of different scenarios and change the variables within the model, and we can do that, and generate their own curves for their looking at different scenarios, but based on the model. So I think that kind of makes sense rather than, I think if we try to put that degree in the final phase, running all sorts of different scenarios, the study is going to lose its meaning. But use that, there again, what I would propose is use this study the way it is as a foundation, and then allow the member agencies to run the various scenarios that they may feel they need to do for their agencies to be able to make sense in planning their own future projects. Those are my thoughts.
Great. I'm Paul Whitehorse, Irvine Ranch Water District. I'd like to commend Karl and his group of consultants for a great job of inviting and encouraging the participation of all the member agencies and the cities in Orange County. I think the study was well thought out. I think it folded in some great thoughts and input from all the participants, and it deals with complex local, regional, and statewide water supply issues that are important to Orange County. I think probably the most important thing that I've learned from the study is that the California water fix doesn't need to move forward for Orange County to find a way to be completely reliable to its communities. I think the study demonstrates that by implementing cost-effective strategies, such as maximizing the feasible implementation of recycled water projects, either tertiary or advanced treatment, it's taken us a long ways, and it will continue to deliver us reliability in the future. Making sure that we maximize the Great Basin that we have here in terms of storing water, banking water for use during dry periods, I think is an important thing of what we already do, and it's going to certainly become a even more important aspect of things moving forward. There's going to be some policy considerations that may have to be dealt with. I think Karl kind of teed that up on one of his slides in terms of potential opportunities for those types of management strategies, and I think we should all embrace those and provide assistance where we can. One of the slides talked about the opportunities for banking and transfers and such. Implementing programs that make use of creative water exchange, transfer, and storage opportunities, such as the great things that Metropolitan does, I think is going to play a part in Orange County. Already, there are examples that are in place. So IRWD's water banking programs in the Central Valley, Santa Margarita's Cadiz project, which would result in transfers into Orange County, would be a significant project, and OCWD's participation in the innovative SARCUP, the Santa Ana River Conjunctive Use Program, is a great example of creative water management strategies for the future. We have cooperative interagency emergency assistance programs already in place. So CWD, MWDOC, and IRWD have an existing program with South County. Those types of programs need to be encouraged for expansions in the future, and are going to play an important part in meeting some of the gaps that Karl had pointed out for South Orange County. In achieving those emergency connection types of strategies, I think it's going to be important to take a look at getting access to regional water conveyance facilities to be able to move different supplies into South County when, for example, Met's pipelines are empty under a major supply interruption. Certainly, advocating, encouraging MWDOC to advocate for us all and providing support wherever we can for Metropolitan's implementation of creative policies that will result in financial support of local projects is going to be a major, of major importance for Orange County and all of Southern California moving into the future. Any improvement in local water supply program, any local water supply program that's implemented throughout anywhere in the Southern California area is going to provide a direct water supply reliability improvement for Orange County. That's the way local projects work. That's the way Metropolitan likes to try to incentivize them, and we should put our full forces around trying to encourage more of that. One example is the creative policy shift that's occurring in Metropolitan is their support for looking at the Carson project. This is an example of indirect potable reuse that is basically riding on the coattails of Orange County Water District's great world-renowned GWRS system, and that's going to be an important part of Orange County's future. So relative to ocean desalination, I think the OC reliability study demonstrates that some agencies may feel that they've exhausted options and want to pursue and subscribe to an ocean desalination project, and they should certainly have the ability to do that. In general, ocean desalination is not really going to come into major play until all the other cost-effective alternatives have been exhausted for the future. If for some reason in the future the Carson IPR project doesn't come to fruition, or the Cal Water Fix project doesn't go forward, and then there's other local resource projects throughout Southern California that don't come into play in a large way, then it makes sense that Metropolitan should take a look at ocean desal from a regional point of view. Looking at it from that perspective would provide for the equitable distribution of the costs and the benefits. So those are the things I've gleaned from the study, and thank you for your time.
Good morning. My name is Matt Collins, the Assistant General Manager of Multi-Gale Water District. And as Karl said, I was invited to participate today, and I appreciate that, Karl, to provide a little bit of the South County perspective. South Orange County, as Karl mentioned, is about 90+% dependent on imported water from Metropolitan for all of its drinking water sources. So this study provided an opportunity for us to not only look at the supply reliability at Metropolitan and the impacts that it could have on South Orange County, but also the system reliability impacts that are critical down in South Orange County as well. It's something that's been evaluated for a number of years. MWDOC undertook that analysis in early 2004, I believe. And a lot of good decisions, a lot of good policies came out of that analysis, and this really was an opportunity to continue to reinforce that, and we were very happy to participate in the process. It actually, the other benefit that it afforded for Molten Gale specifically was in 2012 we undertook our own water reliability study, water reliability plan to look at Molten specifically. And those were based on 2012 demands, and what this allowed for us to participate in and do is to really kind of update that process and those outcomes from that study based on the changes we had seen since 2012, which, showed drastic, reductions in demands and the influence of demand management programs. As a result of that, in our 2012 study, we'd identified, that really the decisions that our board had made and the investments our board had made had put the district in a really good position. The actions following that 2012 study with demand management and demand reductions had a significant impact on the benefits of those projects. From a system reliability standpoint, we were looking at about 2 weeks of resiliency in the event of an outage at, say, the Deemer treatment plant. Through the demand management programs, we increased that to more than 3 weeks of reliability through what I believe are really prudent and very cost-effective programs through demand management, through water use efficiency. So what we had identified, and one of the observations we made out of this was, and as Karl had reinforced, there are programs and opportunities to continue to stretch those reliabilities further that are prudent and very cost-effective. There are programs and just opportunities that Metropolitan can look at implementing that are very prudent and cost-effective. And for us, it was about making sure that we continue to implement those early action items. What the reliability study that MWDOC has undertaken here really reinforced that expansion of our recycled water program as a local supply opportunity, reinvesting and reevaluating the opportunities of the emergency services program with Orange County Water District, MWDOC, and the South County agencies are prudent investments right now. And those are kind of some of the programs and the outputs that Molt Miguel has evaluated from this process. We really believe that this study, and I'll reinforce what Mike had indicated earlier, is a really good opportunity, a really good tool for local agencies to take the outputs from this, but run this through your filters of local policies, local actions that you're looking at. What are your objectives? What are your water reliability goals? What sort of policies and expectations do you have from an operational standpoint, from a water quality standpoint? What sort of expectations do you have of Metropolitan? South Orange County has been dependent on Metropolitan Water District for more than 50 years. What does that mean going forward? What level of expectation do you have both from a financial and from a supply standpoint? Run these analyses through those filters of your local policies and use this as a tool to evaluate where each agency stands and what direction each agency makes sense for you going forward in implementing projects and in implementing programs that make the most sense. So I really see this as a great opportunity to take the good work that MWDOC and all the input from all the agencies to this point and run it through your local filters of local policies to figure out what makes the best decisions for your agency going forward. Thank you.
I also want to thank Karl, Rob, Keith, Harvey from MWDOC, and then Dan from CDM. It was a very thorough process, and they gave us ample opportunities for comments and questions. In one document, we now have cataloged descriptions of Orange County's and Met's likely supply reliability under moderate climate impacts. As Karl said, I'm going to talk about the global issues, and I want to emphasize likely supply reliability. Likely reliability in North Orange County is very different than likely reliability in South Orange County. Recently, I heard Dr. Stanley Grant of UCI talk about the hydrosocial contract that we have with our customers. Initially, people only expected access to water. Then it expanded into moving sewage away from cities and protecting health. Then the hydrosocial contract grew to include uninterruptible water supplies. Then it grew to flood control. And then it grew to include water quality and ecology, which is where we're at now. I don't know that the public understands that this changed hydrosocial contract means that there is not enough water for all of their expectations, and that demand curtailment, cutbacks, could be the response that we use. UC Davis economists estimated the cost of the 2015 drought to be $2.7 billion. You've heard that we can perhaps manage that once every 20 years, once every 15 years, we don't know. Likely supply reliability. That's not what we've historically had. We still need to perform a sensitivity analysis and answer the questions. If other assumptions deviate from expectations, what will the effect be on likely reliability? Met's watershed actually goes up to the delta and takes a hard right up to the Sierras. Bark beetle devastation in those forests and the forest fires have created an environment where we're gonna see less snowpack, regardless of climate change. This is just a fact of what's going on in those forests. When those fires went through, they baked the soil, and now when it rains up there, it just runs off, it fills up the reservoirs up there with sediment. And then it obviously, now it's running off to the ocean. The state's long-term conservation measures, however, may offset some of the demand in a more kind of consistent manner. But we've also lost the reservoir lawns that we had that helped us out during this last drought. A lot of that's gone now. So the next time there's demand curtailment, you're not gonna go and ask people to stop watering their lawns. They're not there anymore. So there's 4 things I'd like to see added to the study. Examination of the potential for controlled stormwater diversions to Orange County Sand District's Plant 1 from the Santa Ana River as a potential local project to harvest stormwater that would otherwise go to the ocean. Consideration of the potential for distributed stormwater harvesting, like rooftop harvesting with rainwater tanks plugged to toilets. I know a lot of the engineers think, yeah, it's not gonna happen. UCI's had a big grant, they've looked at this. Australia's plumbed those directly to the toilets. They've got 2 million people doing that. It's something that I think we need to start looking at, even with our lower rainfall. Consideration of opportunities for South Orange County to bank water in the groundwater basin to increase their reliability. That's kind of that third rail that no one wants to talk about, but just as my driver's license says California on it, and we get our water from Northern California, I think we have to look at Orange County's reliability truly as Orange County's reliability. What impacts will the State Water Board's new 3-year self-certification requirements have on the reliability study? Is 3 years our new reliability standard? Is there the potential for short-term water markets that can help us use the water we have more efficiently? And the last thing I just want to say is San Diego's going to provide us with a lot of good information about overinvestment in water supplies in the short term, but also the extensive reliability that they've gained may stand them in good stead in the long term. So we'll get some good information on that. Thank you.
Okay, audience participation time now. So, questions? There's gotta be questions. Everybody written on the green sheets, I'm gonna select them. Director Swan, I know you have a question.
Okay, what I want is one, before he gets on, Lisa, you said a great point. Has San Diego actually started studies to determine whether they oversupply?
I think that's something that they don't. I don't know for sure about that, but I know it's becoming more and more a topic of discussion amongst the people of San Diego.
I'd be very interested in that, because actually the number one item up here is, do we need a desalinization plant? And that's an oversupply, and so if San Diego answers the question ahead of time, that would be a lot of good information up here. So, thank you.
Questions?
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Scott.
Well, it's okay. I think the point is, this is not a study that's going to be the last study we do for the next, 20, 30 years. I mean, we're gonna do this every 5 years or so, just like Met's gonna do this. And if any of the assumptions we made anywhere along the line are not right, you make an adjustment. As far as your ocean desal thing, you gotta remember that the ocean is not going away. It is, if anything, it's getting closer. And what you don't wanna do, like they did in San Diego from my point of view, is you don't want to shut off one whole system that provides cheap water because you have another system that provides water 3 times more expensive. And that's what overinvestment is, and it might not be politically feasible for them to discuss it because they made that investment, it's a done deal. And you shouldn't be criticized for rear view mirror kind of events, but that happened. So I applaud everything that this group of people did, and Karl, in MWDOC's leadership in doing this. Wasn't an easy deal. It was politically very challenging, but I think it's a good deal, and we should revisit this every 5 or 6 years. Thank you.
Other questions? This is your one.
Quick questions and comments. I'm pretending now that I'm not involved in water at all, and I'm just an average citizen, and I'm looking at the new homes that have gone in my community. And I look at the large bathtubs, my goodness, you could sink in there. I mean, three feet of freeboard, beautiful large tubs, very large. And a lot of, they put a few succulents out in front, but there is no water conservation, there is no gray water use, and there's no requirement to do anything in that area. So that's my first question. Should the new homes that are coming into Orange County, especially South Orange County, should they be required to meet some kind of water efficiency level? And that would be the first one. The second.
Yeah, let me answer it, and then we'll spread the wealth around. But Richard, please fill up.
Fill the paper out?
Yeah, fill it out, and I'll make sure and respond. But with that, what we're finding, contrary to what you just said, is that new developments are more efficient than historical developments. New developments, densities are higher. And part of that efficiency that we're seeing, why we can accommodate 300 and some thousand additional residents in Orange County without raising our overall demand in the county, is because those new developments are occurring in a more efficient basis. Plus, we're going back to the historical communities where there's not that efficiency, and we're paying to have that efficiency built in. So my argument would be contrary to your observation, that I think the new developments going in are demonstrating the efficiency of water use, and if they're over a certain threshold, they are subject to the state mandated water use efficiency landscape ordinance. Other questions?
Over here.
Director Anthony.
Karl, good work, but I just am curious, have you shown your study to Metropolitan yet?
We had a meeting with them in January when we were at an interim stage. We shared it with them. We will be back sharing it with them because it does contrast, and it did take a different path in a number of areas than what they took. And so I think there are some good observations and comparisons.
Yeah, I think they should be aware of your results.
Yep. Thank you. We will stay around. Anybody that has questions, once again, write them down. Richard Gardner, I want a full page from you. Okay, thanks everybody for your time.
I can't. But you can leave now.